games you played as a kid often have a very special place in your heart, especially when it was your first 18+ rated game. For me, this game was Hitman Blood Money, which in turn introduced me to the whole Hitman franchise. And I recently revisited some of these older games and was amazed how well they held up in terms of atmosphere. Of course, the newer Hitman games have superior gameplay and level design, but in terms of its atmosphere, I think the older games easily take the cake. Today I want to talk about why I think Hitman Blood Money and especially its predecessor Hitman Contracts have such an awesomely eerie atmosphere, and why, for example, the newer Hitman games seem to miss some of the magic these older games had. So first of all, as I told you in the intro, I'm definitely nostalgic for these games, but seriously, the tone of the older titles in terms of music and visuals just created this really special experience. Whereas the newer games always felt kind of flat and lifeless in that regard. Again, I don't want to bash the last 3 new games, they are excellent games, but they just kind of miss that special something. The first 4 games in the series all featured soundtracks by Jesper, who you may also know from soundtracks like Assassin's Creed 2, Borderlands or State of Decay. Jesper really had a way with creating world building through music. The soundtracks for Blood Money and Contracts are both hybrid, meaning they combine traditional orchestral elements with electronic elements. Although Blood Money definitely does this more than Contracts, which focuses more on an electronic dark ambient score. Jesper started out in the Amiga demo scene, and later through working on the Hitman games got introduced to composing for orchestra. Back in the day, the whole hybrid approach was still very novel. Nowadays it's pretty much part of most big soundtracks. For example, the newer Hitman games also feature an orchestra/synth hybrid score. But while the new game soundtrack feel more like a Marvel movie, the older games had this really awesome avant-garde style about them. For your listening and viewing pleasure, we are gonna check out some of my favorite moments of these 2 games, and afterwards I'm gonna try to explore how it all works and create some music similar to it. So put on your suit and tie, grab that rubber duck, and let's go. Hey, this sponsored segment is brought to you by me. Besides buying my music, the best way to support me is by becoming a Patreon. As a Patreon, you will receive a range of benefits and goodies depending on your tier. You will have access to behind-the-scenes footage, early access to videos and music I'm working on, and even a Patreon-only livestream. There's also a Patreon-exclusive music library with already over 40 previously unreleased tracks that range from older material like this to newer songs like this, and even things like this. For those in the Guardian tier, you will also receive a 95% discount code for my entire Bandcamp discography. 95% is the maximum they allow. Additionally, you will have access to a Patreon-only Google Drive containing samples, MIDI files, presets, and so on. All resources will of course be updated with new exclusive material over time. Any support truly means the world, and I express my heartfelt gratitude for each one of you being part of this journey. Bye. As you can guess by the name, this mission takes place in an Old English manor. You're tasked to rescue Giles Northcutt on the evening of a hunting party, in which he is to be the hunter's target. The party is hosted by wealthy Englishman Lord Beldingford and his son Alistair. You're contracted to also eliminate these 2. Exploring the manor grounds, you can already feel the dark tone IO Interactive went for with this game. Upon entering the manor, you're greeted with this really awesome and creepy piece of music. This is something you would expect to hear in a horror game, but not really in a game like this. I love the feeling this creates. If we compare this to the Manor mission in the new Hitman, which is also a great mission by the way, it feels much more normal compared to this weirdly creepy one in Contracts. It almost feels like something paranormal is going on here. The weird little almost carnival-like tune coming in and out, and the laughing voices. Obviously games in this era often had a weird, almost uncanny feeling to them. The graphics, the lack of background sound effects, but the way IO made use of that in this game is just awesome. I honestly think this is a technique that could be really useful even today, purposefully restricting the number of background sounds. It draws your attention towards the ones that are there. A great example is when Alistair is relaxing in front of the fire and listening to a vinyl playing. I can only identify the sound of the player, the fire, the rain, and wind from outside, and one of the guys snoring.
There are so many.
This actually reminds me of the old Thief games and their approach to creating atmosphere with sound effects. Lord Beldingford, our other target, is on the upper floor trying to sleep. One of the ways of taking him out is with a pillow. After the kill, this really awesome track starts playing. It, in my opinion, perfectly represents the brutal and cold nature of what you just did. That evil little scratchy sound is so awesome. I'm not even entirely sure if this is like a percussion loop or like a synth percussion distorted into oblivion or something, but it sounds awesome and it really fits that evil vibe. You can take out the other target, Alistair, by poisoning his whiskey, for example, but I was too lazy to do that for this video, so I just shot him. Finally, we rescue the guy locked up in the horse stable and leave the area. Oh no. Oh god, no. This is the mission I played most as a kid. There was something about a hotel casino with different floors, sniper possibilities, multiple targets that I really enjoyed. Also kind of embarrassing, but I used to love to roleplay part of the Timothy Olyphant Hitman movie in this mission. In a house of cards, you are targeted to eliminate 3 people. A sheikh, a CEO, and a white supremacist called Hendrik Schmutz, which, by the way, translates to Hendrik Dirt, a very fitting name, in my opinion. This mission has a really cool verticality to it. The hotel has multiple floors connected via an elevator, but you can only access the lobby, casino, and 7th floor where your room is in the beginning of the mission. To access the 8th floor, you need a keycard for one of the rooms up there. There's also a way around this though. You can just follow one of the targets in the elevator and access the 8th floor, or you can even climb up to it from the 7th floor. As I mentioned in the beginning, there are some really cool sniper opportunities in these missions, and we are going to take advantage of one of them. So we're gonna bring out our trusty sniper in the rifle case. At the beginning of the mission, Helmut Schmutz is the only target already at the site. He's roaming around the casino area. The other 2 arrive a bit later by car. I love the soundtrack for this mission. Going after your business with this track in the background really feels awesome. It almost has this really calm feeling about it. We are going to start this mission by climbing on the left elevator and waiting for Tariq, the CEO, to get in. Tariq is carrying a case of diamonds, which we can also retrieve as an optional objective. Taking care of him in the elevator, we can hide his body and take the diamond case, leaving it up on the elevator for later. Now, with this keycard, we can access the 8th floor. You can take out Helmut in the lobby, or you can wait until he eventually comes up to his room on the 8th floor. We could also take care of him in the elevator, just like with Tariq, but I missed that time window, so we're just gonna follow him into the room. There's also an option to shoot him from the lower floor. There's this woman on the 7th floor that's really drunk and kind of seeps into our bald friend here.
Hey there, stud. You're not alone, are ya?
I'm unaccompanied, if that's what you mean.
Whoa! I can change that. I'm alone in Suite 703.
Following her into the room, you are able to spot Helmut, which presents a great sniper opportunity. Now walking towards the CEO's room on the 8th floor, you'll notice a lot of bodyguards which actually prevent you from going inside Tariq's room. Triggering the fire alarm makes them leave their positions though, so you can freely explore the CEO's room. You can even detonate a bomb here to permanently trigger the fire alarm state. In his room, you'll find a telephone where we can quick dial the last remaining target. This will in turn make him leave the VIP lounge because there's no cell phone coverage to prevent cheating down there, and present you with the perfect opportunity. This mission starts off fairly simple. You're supposed to eliminate Boris Ivanovich Deraska, who is trying to purchase a nuclear weapon from a biker gang. Wait, what? The deal is going down at Rotterdam Harbor. Boris has a ship, the Katerina Ivanovna, and he will be waiting there for the weapon to be delivered by car. So, first of all, we are going to have to be able to track down the weapon, just in case. Since the car with the nuclear weapon is conveniently placed in front of a strip club, we might be able to convince one of the women working there to distract the guy guarding the car.
Guy by that car over there is a friend of mine. Maybe you could cheer him up.
I can cheer any man up for 250.
Here's a grand. Make him ecstatic. And take your time.
Also, as you might notice as we go over these missions, Hitman Contracts is a collection of older assignments Agent 47 is remembering while suffering from a gunshot wound. That's why it rains everywhere. The reality is bleeding into the memories. Also, it looks really cool. Anyways, what I really love about this mission is that it turns out that the police know about the weapons deal. They plan to actually raid the ship and arrest Boris. At first, this might seem like a sticky situation since we want the guy dead, but it actually presents us with the perfect opportunity. Exploring the warehouses in the harbor, we can find the SWAT team getting ready for the raid. Taking care of one of the operators, we can quickly switch into the SWAT gear and actually take part in the raid. I'm just gonna let this scenario and the awesome music unfold without any interruption.
Charlie to command. Charlie team in place. All units, we have a go. Repeat, we have a go. Alpha leader moving in. We are engaging the ship. Snipers in position. Cover to command. We are advancing. Let's move! Go, go, go! Ah! My brain, my brain! Come on to all units. Ship has been softened. Begin phase 2.
This one is going to be rather quick. The mission itself is really awesome, but I wanted to point out a little secret in this game which used to scare me a lot as a kid. In this mission, you're supposed to eliminate a terrorist who is trying to detonate a chemical bomb at the United Nations conference, taking place at the same hotel he's staying in. This is another one of those where upon entering the main area, you are greeted with this super atmospheric piece of music that instantly sets the mood. Upon exploring the hotel lobby, you notice one of the hotel wings has been closed off. Obviously, we gotta investigate this. Maybe there's some kind of opportunity waiting for us to make the job a lot easier. Going through the locked door, the lobby track starts fading out and this super eerie ambient track starts playing while your surroundings start getting darker. At this point, I already was super scared as a kid. Remember me talking about how some of the missions almost felt a bit paranormal? Well, turns out I wasn't far off. Talking to the police officer in front of room 109, he promptly explains to us that there has been an accident.
What's going on, officer?
There's been an accident, sir. Please move along. Nothing of interest here, just a nasty accident.
Investigating the crime scene, you start to notice that this doesn't really seem like an accident at all. Something is definitely off. I'm not gonna lie, this scared me so much as a kid playing this. This is definitely one of my favorite video game secrets. It just adds another creepy layer upon this already creepy game. There are a ton more really memorable moments, like the opera where you can switch out the fake gun for a real one. The Christmas party at the Porn Tycoon's mountain estate. The heaven and hell parties. The showdown with the SWAT at the end of Contracts. Or the mission The Murder of Crows, where you have to counter-eliminate 3 assassins at the Mardi Gras parade in New Orleans, which, by the way, features a really awesome track which I actually tried to dissect and analyze because of this really awesome choir part in it. But I have no idea how Jesper achieved this. My first thought was that it might be some mangled recording of a children's choir, like almost whispering, but upon further listening I'm pretty sure it's the choir from Hitman's Silent Assassin, so Hitman 2, same words and all. I tried all kinds of techniques to get similar results: bit crushing, downsampling, upsampling, ring modulation, etc, etc. So if you happen to have a clue how Jesper did this, please let me know. Anyways, as you can tell, there are a lot of cool moments in these games, but since the video is already way longer than I expected and I haven't even started going over the music, I'll just stop here. Now I'm going to dive deeper into how the soundtrack got made, what the characteristics of it are, and how one could approach making similar music. Not gonna lie, this is probably one of the toughest times I tried to reconstruct or emulate a composer's sound. There are some sounds in this soundtrack which I honestly have no idea how they got made, and that's also kind of why I love it so much. I ended up creating 3 different ideas, 2 of which are focused more on the Contract's electronic sound, while the other focuses on that Blood Money orchestral sound. Contract's soundtrack to me feels more dark and gritty, while Blood Money has more of a celestial or divine quality to it. Contracts features a lot of electronic elements. Things are being mangled, stretched and affected in interesting and various ways. You can definitely tell there's a lot of inspiration taken from underground rave music. Perfect example is the track Slaughter Club. I couldn't find much on what exact gear Jesper used for Contract's soundtrack, but there was some listed gear on Gearspace for the Freedom Fighter soundtrack, which was created at a similar time with similar electronic elements. Additionally, he mentions using Omnisphere and other Spectrasonics products. I found the older Spectrasonics Stylus RMX samples sound a lot like the drums and percussions in the older Hitman games, so I ended up using those as the basis for my rhythmic sections a lot. This is the first idea I came up with. I came up with this weird rhythmic sharp sound in Massive by combining 3 oscillators in different intervals and frequency shifting all of them, sending that through a filter and automating a bunch of parameters and distorting everything to come up with this. Then I went through the Omnisphere library and found this cool little atmospheric hit. I added a bunch of reverb to further emphasize that cold, spacious feel. As mentioned earlier, the drum and percussion samples from old Stylus RMX bangs are a perfect fit, and I ended up sampling some of them, downshifting and applying different kinds of effects to create this rhythmic layer. That gritty swoosh sound was made as a byproduct of me trying to create that scratchy sound from earlier. Last but not least, I added a Reese-type bass with some filter modulation to give the track more depth and emphasize the dark quality of it. The full version of these tracks will be available on my Patreon for the sponsor tier and up. For this track I found this haunting sound in Omnisphere called Southern Lights. It pretty much perfectly fit as it is, and I only ended up EQing it a little bit. I played around with some interesting intervals but ended up on this F5 chord. I then added this grungy bass and this deep rattly sound. Together with the atmosphere, they already fit perfectly into the game in my opinion, really painting that cold-blooded killer vibe here. Onto some drums. The first layer is basically just a simple drum machine groove. I layered that with some percussion that have some more mid-frequency, then 2 higher frequency layers that are panned left and right. And finally, I found this sparkly sound which just perfectly sits on top of the track. The Blood Money soundtrack is a totally different beast. Obviously, I don't have access to the Hungarian orchestra, so I used the next best thing, Kontakt libraries. I started this idea with a Mollet bass hit. A bass line like this that only moves a semitone perfectly emphasizes that cold-blooded vibe. I layered this with a metal board impact, which introduces the bass line with this dark swoosh and just adds a really nice textural layer. To make the mood even more fitting to the game, I introduced a wind sound which plays this dark sounding interval. Then I added some strings and a counter element that helps create the dissonant feel. To bring in an electronic element, I added this little percussion loop from stylus towards the end of the phrase. Now onto the main part that makes up a big chunk of the Blood Money soundtrack, the choir. I haven't really worked with any form of choir yet, so this was definitely interesting. Most libraries I found often focus on legato or pad sounds, not really on phrases, or they are just insanely expensive. So I ended up using Stressov, I don't know how to pronounce that, sampling choir essentials, because it featured multiple voices and a random syllable function. And finally, another sparkly sound. I don't know why, but these just really bring these tracks together. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed my trip down memory lane. If you'd like to support what I do, you can do so by buying my music on Bandcamp or by becoming a Patreon. I love working on videos like these, but they do take a lot of time, so any support is really appreciated. See you soon.